Hi, this is the fifth part of my video blog about Song, Ice and Fire, and as previously promised, in this one I'm going to talk about the prophecies. Again, this is going to have to be in two parts for length, apologies for that, and I'm mainly going to be talking about what I consider to be the most important one, which is Azor Ahai reborn, Prince that was promised, three heads of the dragon, and of course how those three interconnect. The best starting point, I think, is to use the most concrete evidence we have to talk about Azor Ahai, because we have a very nice little description by Melisandre, who says, "It's written in prophecy as well, when the red star bleeds and the darkness gathers, Azor Ahai shall be born again amid salt and smoke to wake dragons out of stone." That's quite succinct, but that's not her opinion, that's something from the R'hllor faith, so I think we can trust that. And there are some references from Azor Ahai as well that suggest he knows about the same thing, which, for my mind, narrows the potential candidates to be Azor Ahai reborn down to 5. There are two obvious ones, who are Stannis Baratheon and Daenerys Targaryen, and the three less obvious ones were Davos Seaworth, Bran Stark and Sandor Clegane. Now, Stannis, I don't think, is Azor Ahai, because although he had this very staged rebirth, and he does appear to have what looks like Lightbringer, Azor Ahai, who seems to know what he's talking about, certainly doesn't think that Lightbringer is real. Melisandre's motives don't appear to be clear, and he hasn't been reborn in truth. I suppose you could say in a way he was reborn spiritually, but he hasn't woken dragons, and although he was reborn amid smoke, it's questionable as to whether there was any salt involved. So although it's possible, I don't think it's him. Daenerys Targaryen was reborn amid salt and smoke, in that she walked into the pyre with the dragon's eggs and Khal Drogo, and was essentially reborn out of that, and the salt came from her tears, and she did wake dragons out of salt and smoke. Now, as far as I can see, that meets the prophecy entirely, so I'm almost tempted to say it is definitely Daenerys Targaryen, and certainly Azor Ahai thinks it is. The only question is to whether she's got Lightbringer. Now, there are two possibilities here. One is that in fact the dragons are Lightbringer, in that in a lot of respects they meet the descriptions we have of what Lightbringer was. The other possibility that's being suggested is that the great sword of House Dane is in fact Lightbringer, it's called Dawn, and that the sword itself is a Starfall, and that Daenerys can go and pick it up. So that's a possibility, and I'm almost tempted to say it's Daenerys because of that. It's only the other three that make me question that. Now, Davos Seaworth might not seem obvious. He hasn't woken dragons. He doesn't have anything that's resembling Lightbringer, and these are major problems of his. But in a sense, he was reborn amid salt and smoke, in that he went into the Blackwater Rush, tidal estuary, so there's the salt. We've got the wildfire, so there's the smoke, and he was rescued seemingly miraculously. Now, yes, it does seem a bit odd. Yes, in A Feast for Crows, it does seem like he's been killed, but as we haven't seen it, I'm not going to believe it until I read it. But I do think that he might have something to do with it. I think it's unlikely, but it's possible. The last two are more convincing. Bran Stark, on face value, has virtually nothing going for him. Well, he hasn't been reborn, he hasn't woken dragons, he hasn't got Lightbringer, but there's a slightly cryptic passage in A Clash of Kings, which, if you'll permit me, I'll read you. He's skin changing with Summer, and Summer says, "The smoke and ash cloud his eyes, and in the sky saw a great winged snake whose roar was a river of flame. He bared his teeth, but the snake was gone. that sounds like a dragon. Now yes, we're seeing this through a direwolf, and we're seeing through the eyes of a direwolf through the eyes of an 8-year-old boy, so how much we can trust that, I don't know. But it's possible that he could actually see a dragon. It becomes more interesting when Osher, when they're leaving the crypt, says, "We made enough noise to wake a dragon." Now that could be an innocent little phrase, or it could be prophetic. It could be a little clue from George telling us what's going to happen. Or he could be doing what he's done many times and leading me straight up the garden path by the nose. But I think that's worth thinking about. The theory goes that the hot springs under the Winterfell keep could have been keeping a dragon alive for many centuries, and that in the process of Ramsay Bolton burning the keep, that could have reawoken the dragon. That, of course, begs the question, why has Bran gone north if the dragon's under the keep? Well, of course, Bran's not got any Valyrian blood, so he wouldn't be able to control it. So perhaps he's gone north for the skin changing, and then he can come back and the dragon can be his lightbringer. That's a very long shot, and it's a bit left field, and it's perhaps even less convincing for my money now plus L equals J, but I think that's worth considering. The last one is Sandor. Now, a lot of people are going to be saying, well, that he's dead. We might be. In A Feast for Crows, in a Brienne chapter, we meet this character, the Gravedigger, who is described as being taller than Brienne, and George R. R. Martin has specifically said that Sandor is taller than Brienne. He's got a great affinity for dogs. Well, we know Sandor Clegane's got an affinity for dogs. And he's got a limp. And when we last saw him, he had a hip wound and was dying on the bank of a trident. So if he'd managed to survive that, he would be limping. Of course, you're then going to be telling me, well, he wasn't reborn amidst salt and smoke, he hasn't woken dragons, he hasn't got a lightbringer. But, in a manner of speaking, he was, in that he was at the Blackwater as well, and was terrified of the fire, because he was, and very shortly after fled, got into his various misadventures with Arya, got injured, and the last time we saw him he was dying. Another interesting thing on that point is that the elder brother, where the Gravedigger is, says that Sandor is at peace and the Hound is dead. Now you could interpret that as him saying the Hound, the violent, aggressive persona that we've all learned to dislike and fear, has gone, and that the good boy, as he was at the time, that his brother Gregor killed when he thrust his face into the fire, has re-emerged, or that an entirely new man has been brought out by what he's gone through. So you have the Salt and Smoke, the Battle of the Blackwater Rush, you have the rebirth. Lightbringer, I will admit, is very difficult, but again, he could go to Starfall and pick up Dawn. The Dragons is more problematic, but I think he's a candidate, because yes, it might be a little bit of a fantasy cliche that the villain goes away, becomes a hero, and comes in to save everyone. It would be a new take on that old twist, and also I quite like the idea. I still think it's Daenerys as the most likely candidate, but, as I'll explain in the next video, from here it becomes rather interesting. So if you want to know what I'm talking about, go and watch the second part now. And thank you for watching this part.